everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole, and in today's video we are looking at the design center. So we are currently in the process of having a new home built, and I think the design center is something that really excites a lot of people. So you know that you're building a new home, you've already looked through, you've picked out your model, you've signed the contract, and that next big piece is getting all of the decorating ideas in one place. The design center is exciting, it's a little bit overwhelming. So these are a couple tips that I've learned throughout my process of building this current home. A little bit from my last home, although I honestly did not learn as much as I should have and had to relearn a lot. So I'm really hoping these will help you with anything in your future when designing your home. If that sounds good to you, go ahead, give this video a thumbs up, leave me a comment below, subscribe, don't forget, hit that notification bell. Let's get started. The design center is really where your vision starts to come together. You're going to pick out anything and everything from your flooring to your faucets to if you're doing backsplash, your cabinets, your countertops. All of the small details are really going to start to come together in the design center. Now, this is going to be a long appointment. I would say a minimum of 4 hours, and it's probably going to be more than one, hopefully. So personally, I actually went back 4 times, and unfortunately, I did not learn enough from my previous experiences just yet to really take full advantage. So again, I'm just really hoping that through some of my mistakes, a lot of what I've learned through just putting myself through doing this again and again, that you're gonna find something valuable from here. So one of the big stress factors of the design center is the unknown. Every builder is gonna have something slightly different. So you might have some of the basics, some of the general ideas, but you don't know for sure what it is that they're gonna offer until you get into that appointment. I know that for me, we didn't get into the design center until about a month and a half after we signed the contract. That is a lot of time to sit there stewing, trying to figure out what it is that you can actually have. It's nice to have an idea, but until you get there, it's really difficult. There's not really a binder for the most part that can get you through everything. Even if there is, it really helps to see everything in person anyway. In that waiting period, this is your time to get all of your research done. So my tip number 1 is to research, think about everything, over-research a little bit to really get a great idea of what it is that speaks to you. Our first time around, I did not approach this well at all. It was really just, okay, we know we want hardwood in some of the places, we kind of have an understanding of some of the cabinetry, but there was no real plan going in. So it was very overwhelming when you sit down and you realize that over the course of the next 4 to 6 hours, you're picking out every detail, and it's just a lot to take in. So tip number 1 is really to do your research, and not only to do your research on what you like, but to be really honest with yourself about what it is that you want. I really kind of fell into the trap on our initial design center visit of overcorrecting from some of the mistakes that I made in our first house. So looking at our first house, it was very dark. We had a lot of the more traditional, it was very, 90s, 2000, like early 2000s vibes, and it's just what I knew. So that's all I really thought about for the first house. So when we came here for our second one, and I knew that I wanted to pretty much start completely fresh, I not only wanted to start fresh, I pretty much went completely in the opposite direction. So I tried essentially to do everything that I thought was the right thing to do, which ended up being a lot of the trends that are kind of always in flux. So trends are great. They are fun. They show, what everybody likes, what's kind of new, what's kind of fresh, but they go in and out of style, which is something that you really need to keep in mind. So initially, I looked at a lot of gray, like a lot of gray. It was a little bit overwhelming. Gray floors, I was going to do cabinets, the countertops, but when I started putting all of this together, pretty much once we left and I was looking back through all the pictures, which you'll probably do a lot, is just going back through everything, I began to realize that it was going to be, I'm gonna say frigid. It was going to look very cold. Everything was in those very cool colors. And it was just a little bit too, I'll say trendy, but also it was a trend that was already passing. I think in the last couple of years, we're already seeing that move away from gray. Those warm tones, our beiges are coming back. So everything obviously will cycle. I'm sure if we had done that and we waited another, 20 years, it'll come back around. That's just kind of how it all works all the time. But I realized that it wasn't really something that I wanted. It's just that I felt like I had to distance myself from what I'd done in the past, and I knew it was a mistake, but I didn't really realize why it was a mistake and why it didn't work for me, for us, for our style, for our taste. So I just went in the opposite direction, pretty much committed to everything up front, didn't really take the time to look through everything. And we were going to go very gray, very monochrome, very, trying to get into that contemporary style, which is beautiful. And I think it can really work for some people. But again, this is where that honesty with yourself really comes in. It is not for me. It is not what is going to make us happy in the long run. So I'm very happy that we did have the time to go back for another appointment and fix a couple of things. That honesty is key. You really have to make sure that it is what you truly want and not what you think you should want, which is definitely the trap that I fell into from appointment number 1 at the design center. All right, so tip number 2 is to go builder grade on some things. So I know that builder grade gets a lot of a bad reputation, and kind of for good reason. I think we all know what the lighting fixtures look like from a new build home when you go contract grade, and it's not great. But the good thing there is it's usually something that's included in the price. So you're not paying for anything extra on top of anything else. And light fixtures are one of the easiest things to replace. Another thing to think about might be your cabinet hardware, but this is also going to be where some research comes in. If you know that there are things that you're going to want to replace, like I know that we are going to be doing light fixtures completely redone in basically every single space, go contract grade. You're gonna save yourself a lot of money there. And honestly, a lot of the upgrades that they do have at the design center will be more on that trend focused, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's what a lot of people like, which is why it's there. But if it's not something that really speaks to you, first of all, there are so many types of lighting. I mean, you can go to any website, any store, and you're going to find different variations. The idea that they might have the exact one for you is just probably not really going to happen. So you can go to, basically any other website store, find the one that really speaks to you, purchase it there. And yes, you'll have to get it installed later. You'll have to take down the current light fixtures. Those can also be sold, Facebook Marketplace. But then you're gonna have one that really, really speaks to who you are, what your design style is, and you'll be much happier in the long run. So going with that kind of base model tier is really going to help you save a little bit of money that you can then put towards something that's going to be a little bit more you and help your design style really come together. Tip number 3 is going to be to compare pricing. So when you do get home from everything, they're going to print out this huge sheet of everything that you've done. And brace yourself, it's a lot when you see it all priced out and you see that big total at the bottom and then they add it to the price of your house. Just deep breath. That is actually going to help you. So we priced out a lot of things that we weren't quite sure if we did want. Some of the things we knew we did, but maybe we were gonna go through the builder, maybe we were gonna buy it on our own. And what that pricing sheet does is it helps you know what it is that they can offer. Usually it's only, option 1, 2, and 3, something like that. And then when you come home, you have the entire world of options at your disposal. So one example in particular here, in our butler's pantry, we are gonna have a beverage fridge. So the one that they provided for us was like $1,700. It was a single zone, so you could either have your wine or your other beverage of choice, but it was kind of gonna be hard to have both. So I've looked at a bunch of different dual zone ones, and they're going to be very easy to put under the counter. They come in a bunch of different sizes, so I know that one of them will work. We do have to wait a little bit, which is hard because you want everything. We want everything when we want it, right? So that waiting period can be a little bit more stressful, especially right now when we've already waited a lot longer than we thought we were going to have to. But it's also given a lot of time to do this kind of research. So coming back, looking through the pricing sheet, seeing, okay, they can provide this option, but it's a lot more expensive than if we got this option on our own. That's just something that's really going to help you out. So go back through. You're gonna get sick of looking at this sheet of paper, but keep flipping through, keep looking at all the pricing, see what is worth it to go through the builder and see what it's not, because that way you can save for, again, just like with the previous tip with the light fixtures, you can get something that you actually truly want and not feel like you're settling. The next tip is something that I kind of hinted at earlier, which is to make another appointment. It's really hard to get everything you want done in that single appointment. Sometimes that's the best you can do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the more time you have to really think everything through, the better it's going to be for you, unless you're the type to overthink things, which I have done a little bit in the past as well. But again, with all of the time we've had, I think it's really helped narrow down a little bit more into what it is that we're looking for. So with this, we knew that we were going to have 2 appointments going in. They said that, the first one is to get everything down and out, and then give you some time to digest everything, make some choices, change your mind, and then come back to really solidify everything. Now, because everything took a lot longer, we were able to make a couple more appointments. But that being said, there's no reason that you can't ask for more if you are feeling a little bit, I'm gonna say claustrophobic. I know that I woke up in the middle of the night a couple times feeling like if I don't change this, I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life, which sounds a little bit dramatic, and it is. But you might have felt like that too when you feel like there's just this pressure on your chest that you've made a choice that you are instantly regretting. It's not even done yet, it's just in the paperwork, but you know that it has to change before it gets built out, or you're going to just have this deep regret. And that's just not a feeling that we want to have if it can be avoided by just asking for another appointment. So not in a great way, but I did end up going back to the design center 4 times, which is also not very convenient because it's over an hour away. But again, you're putting so much money. This is a huge investment. This is something that if you have the ability to make it more and more what you want, it might not be perfect, and that's fine. But to get you there in those baby steps, any little thing you can do to help give you peace of mind and create that vision is going to be worth it. So how to make the most of those appointments is to go back to that step number 1. After you've done your crazy amount of research, you have your first appointment, again, take everything home, look over it, look through all your pictures, really try to flesh out your design style, what it's going to look like, go through it in your head, pick out everything that you have on, all of your carts. If you're like me, you have a cart on every website. Just go through and make sure that it's all looking like what you want. So that way, when you do your research the second time around and you go back for your second design appointment, you are confident. You're not going to be waking up in the middle of the night with those kind of, I need to change something feelings. It's really going to help you out. All right, the 5th thing, and kind of going back to what I just said about making another design appointment, is they're not always free. There are change fees, especially for things that are structural, but sometimes you're asking for, an NSO, a non-standard option, and those things come with a little bit higher of a price tag. So I did change a couple of things that they did require a change fee because it was a little bit later in the process and we had already picked out some of those initial things. So just keep in mind that you might have to pay a little bit extra. Now for us, it was worth it because they were higher priced items. The change fee is not cheap. So you want to make sure that it is something that you are aware of, and the more prepared you can be going in, the better. It's going to feel like you have over-researched this to death. It will be worth it to do everything as much as you can now so that you can have that peace of mind later. Tip number 6 is to have a budget going in. So they'll be able to let you know kind of the average that people spend in the design center. It is not going to be cheap, so just keep that in mind. Obviously, your base model home will come with some of the things, but when you walk through the model home, there will be a lot of upgrades in there. So just keep in mind that the design center, it is easy to spend a lot of money. So again, they can give you that kind of range to give you an idea of what is typical to spend there. Make your budget, see how much it is that you are comfortable adding to the price of that base home, and that will help you see what the true cost of the home will be. Now, while you have a budget going in, I would also suggest at the same time to build out your dream home within reason. Now, while you do have that budget going in, when you do hit the design center, I would price out everything that you want. So those sound a little bit conflicting, to have that budget to keep you in check, but then to also kind of do everything. And what we're going to do here is, again, build out everything that you want. They're going to show you a lot of the cool items. You can have the pricing for everything, and that's going to help you see, okay, if I want absolutely everything, this is how much it's going to cost. My budget is here, so that means I have this little bit of space that I need to get rid of. So what that does is it gives you the time, again, everything's going to be on that pricing sheet, so you can go back through and see what's unnecessary, what do you not need right now, what can you do later that will save you a little bit of money here. That way you can start kind of crossing off some of the things that aren't essential to bring you back down in line with your budget and see what it is that maybe you can surprise yourself with what you can get. And other times, maybe you can just at least get a pricing approximation for some of the things. So for example, the beverage fridge, we also priced out the soft close on everything in the kitchen and the primary bathroom. And then we realized that those were just very expensive. We could probably do them a little bit cheaper ourselves later, or something like the soft close. It's just not the top of our priority list. That also helps you prioritize things a little bit once you see how much everything will cost. So then you start backing down from there and gets you a little bit more into your price range. But again, information is good. That way you can see what these things might cost you at a later date, or again, if you can find them for cheaper. Number 7 is going to be to ask all of the questions that you have. Sometimes we feel like the question might be a little bit silly, but again, this is your home, this is your investment. You are spending a lot of time, energy, and money. This is something that you do not want to have any extra questions kind of lingering after. So some of the things that we did, there's a lot of space between the top of the cabinet and the ceiling. It's not standard for them to do the cabinets all the way to the ceiling, but we asked about that. We had to get a separate price. It did cost a little bit more money, obviously, but they were able to do that kind of NSO, that non-standard option, to get the cabinets all the way to the ceiling. A lot of people right now are even not doing upper cabinets at all. So kind of completely opposite of what we just did, taking out all of the uppers entirely. Again, not something that is probably standard for a lot of homes, but I'm sure it's something they could do. You don't know until you ask. You already have the no by not asking. So the only thing you're really risking is that yes. Another item that kind of caught us off guard was sink sizing. So not in the kitchen, we already had that picked out, but some of the bathroom sinks could actually come in a couple of different sizes that we weren't aware of. It looked like they were actually going to be quite small, so we were able to make that a bigger size, which we were very happy with. Another thing is that we did not really see any of the options for backsplash that we wanted there. We were going to do it separate. They obviously have a lot of different choices out there, but if you don't get the backsplash option at the time of the home purchase, they have to add that 4-inch backsplash of whatever your countertop is. Removing that can just be a little bit more cumbersome. It's not that difficult from what I can tell, but you do have that little bit of a gap generally between the countertop and the wall. So if they don't do the backsplash then, you just have to worry about an extra step in the future. Again, it's not the end of the world, but just something else to keep in mind. So what they did is, because we went back and we just could not find the backsplash that we wanted, they were actually able to set up an appointment with the company they buy the tile from to see if we could pick out something else from the actual tile center that would be a little bit more aligned with what we were looking for. So that kind of separate appointment would not have come standard, but again, it's worth asking to see if there is something that maybe you really have your heart set on, a certain type of backsplash tile, flooring, whatever it is. See if they can set up that appointment for you at the center where they purchase that product. You'll have a lot more choices, a lot more options. It will take a little bit longer because they will have to do some pricing back and forth, but if the end result is exactly what you hope for, it's probably worth it. Number 8, be willing to be a little bit flexible. So we've been talking a lot about getting exactly what you want. Sometimes that's really difficult. Every design center will be a little bit different. Sometimes the offerings aren't going to be exactly what it is you were hoping for. You might not get your number one option in a couple of things. Sometimes it's because your neighbor has the same color siding already picked out, so you can't have that one because they don't want everything to match completely. Sometimes it's something like right now, we're experiencing some supply chain issues. You know, all of the cargo ships are kind of stuck off the coast and we're not able to offload all of that. So getting the appliances, getting a couple of the other items have been very difficult. So things have been in short supply, or it could be like right now, we have everything picked out. At our pre-construction meeting, they did let us know that there are some items they're having a really hard time getting a hold of, and we might have to change them out. It's not something that happens too often outside of, the state of the world the last couple of years, but this might be how it is for quite a while. So it's something to prepare for. You might not get your first option. So this is again where you have to think about what can you do later versus what is good enough for now. So maybe it is that your siding is going to be a shade darker or lighter, and that's just something to keep in mind going in. It's important to remember that things like the exterior of your home can be repainted and redone later. So again, it might not be exactly your ideal right from the start, but there are usually things you can do to kind of mitigate that afterward to make sure that it is something that you are happy with. It might just be at a later date. Number 9 is going to be looking at some of those more investment pieces. Typically, flooring is something that's a lot more difficult to do after moving in, so that's probably something you want to think about now. Again, pricing can definitely vary, so it's something to always look back on after you get that pricing sheet. But I would highly suggest something like the flooring. If you're going for a hardwood, if you're going for an LVP, something like that. Basically, that's either not carpet or something that's an upgraded carpet. I would really look at doing that now rather than later. Again, once everything's moved in, if you do decide to rip up the flooring later, it's just a little bit more difficult to move everything out of the way. It's time consuming, it's very loud. We actually had that done in our last house. Really wish we had just done it at the very beginning in the design center the first time, but we were there a couple years before we decided to replace that. And it's more cumbersome. So some of those kind of high value options you might want to look at right now. Appliances might be another thing, so it just really depends. Again, every design center will be a little bit different, what they can offer, and then again, especially now, what they are able to actually get a hold of might be different. So sometimes, they'll be able to package things so that if you buy the complete package of whatever, that manufacturer is, you can save a little bit of money. That's something that we've priced out everything that they gave us, what it would cost us, on our own versus what they were able to provide. And it does provide us with some savings. So we're definitely going to go through them for that. Now, sometimes they don't provide appliances right up front. You can get them without, the stove, the refrigerator already hooked up and plugged in when you do move in. Now, they may offer some of those really nice appliances, those higher end ones, those more statement pieces, especially if you're looking for a little bit more of that monochromatic kitchen. That statement piece might be something you're really looking for. Again, get it priced out. Look at the pricing again later. Sometimes it will pay off to go through them. Other times, if you know that it's something that you want, maybe it will be more expensive at the design center, or maybe they can't give you the offer of what it is you're really looking for. Then again, either go with that base model, the cheapest option, so that you know you can switch it out, or if they do give you the option to just leave those spaces blank so that you can put in your own appliances later, that's just something that you'll want to keep in mind. All right, my last tip is going to be to consider everything. This sounds a little bit counterintuitive to tip number 1, which was to do your research, but you don't know what you don't know. So for example, we walked in and I thought I had an idea of what I liked, so I kind of narrowed in on some of the options and didn't really consider some of the others. So for example, I'll show a picture of some of the cabinet pulls that we can have in the kitchen. We went with this matte black one, which I am very happy with, but I didn't even look over to the left here where you can see those really long pulls, and I would have absolutely loved that. Now at the time, it's not something I even looked at, considered, would have thought was in a realm of something that I was going to want later on. But again, this is just something that take pictures of everything. Make sure that you are looking at everything. There might be something that completely takes you by surprise. It might be something that you didn't even know that you did like. It's really hard to know what you like until you see all of it, right? So going back through, again, I highly suggest take pictures of everything so that you can flip back through when you have more time later on after that design appointment, but don't limit yourself. So look at everything, consider everything. One of the things that, looking back at that cabinet pull, if we had gotten that large one, even if that's not exactly right, then at least the hole spacing would be a little bit more easy to switch out. So right now we have this cabinet pull. I'm not quite sure how big it is. We'll say 4 inches from hole to hole. So if we were to replace that cabinet pull later, we have to get something that is that same size. I guess we could look at trying to fix the cabinet and drill another hole for a longer pull, but that sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like something that, is probably not going to hold up very well. I just feel like at that point, you're probably looking at replacing the cabinet front. So now we're going into way expensive territory. Whereas if I had just looked at all of the cabinet pulls to begin with, it would have made life a lot easier. So this seems like a silly little detail compared to an entire house, but there are a lot of different items there. So again, just look at everything, go in with the knowledge of what it is that you want, what it is that you know your design style is, what kind of speaks to you, but give everything a chance. Look at all of it. This is your time. It might take a little bit longer than you were anticipating. This is a long appointment. I get that it gets a little bit emotionally frying at the end, but it will help you out so much in the long run once you know that you've looked over everything, you've considered everything, and what you have chosen is exactly what it is that you want. So Design Center Day or days can be very fun. I definitely want you to look forward to it. They can also be stressful. These are the tips that really would have helped me going in. I do hope that they help you. If you are looking at, going into a design center soon, if you have in the past and any of these were something that you did yourself, if they were helpful, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Other than that, make sure again, like this video, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until next time, bye.